Okay, so I'm going to be showing you how to draw on the pronto plates, the polyester plates. So these are direct to plate. They're meant to be used with copiers using toner, so laser copiers or laser printers, but we can also use hand materials to draw on them, some traditional for printmaking, others that are just waterproof. A lot of different materials can be used, and this demo and list of materials is by no means exclusive. You might find other things that work just as well or even better for your methods. So I'm going to just show you some of the drawing materials that you can use. I'm not going to try to make any art, just a little demo here. Many of these materials are very reliable. One of those is a ballpoint pen. Just about any ballpoint pen works, but I suggest that before you do anything, you make some test plates. And this is kind of a fun method because you could take this anywhere and draw from life or observation. You can take it home with you, that kind of thing. So you might want to slip a piece of paper underneath your hand, something that won't smear the ink. So you want to, you can smear the ink. I don't know how well that will print. I wouldn't count on it. So this is a great method. It usually takes a couple seconds for this to dry before it won't smear anymore, so after it's been there for a while. Some inks may smear, some may not, so you might want to try that and find the ones that don't smear. You never know. Sometimes they won't work, but usually just about any kind of ballpoint pen works fine. Another thing that works well is a pigment liner that you can get in an art store. This is like a little magic marker, gives you a solid line. You can get these in all sorts of widths, from very, very thin to wide. If you want something a little bolder, a Sharpie pen works fine, and you can make solid areas with these as well. Once you put these marks down, you're stuck with them. There's really no way to remove them. What else here? You can try various things you might have around. This is a Tombow paintbrush that I think people use for illustration, maybe manga. But it's kind of fun. You can use it very freely. I haven't tried this before with the plate, so I don't know if it'll work. If it's waterproof, it should work. There's no need to apply these thickly. They work fine, just real thin. A couple other things that will work might be a drawing ink, a permanent drawing ink, and by that I mean it dries to a waterproof surface. And there's lots of these available. Now these can be used with pen and quill. If you have a desire to use some different tools, maybe try some different things. These are very inexpensive. You can pick up different nibs at the art store. You can try them. If you don't like them, you could probably return them. And they come in all shapes and sizes. This is just a kind of a wider tip. And they're a lot of fun to draw with, very fluid. And you can see the ink lasts a long time. And frankly, I prefer these to the markers because the markers don't last that long. They have solvents in them. They dry out. This is something it's a little bit of an investment, but really no more than a marker. And with these waterproof inks, you always want to make sure you have a bottle of water and that you're cleaning out your nib right away. You can let it stay in the water if you want. I wouldn't leave it there overnight. These sometimes do corrode. So rinse them out and use a little soap when you're done to finish. This is a different kind of nib. used for calligraphy and different things. You can see it's very decorative. I recommend just trying different nibs and seeing what kinds of vocabulary of mark making you can come up with that might be different from something you've done before. So again, I'm going to rinse that out. Here's a different nib with 5 rules. This is meant for music, but you can use it for anything. If you move it back and forth, it resembles cartography marks. Very fun. And this tip is just a fine tip. Now again, these are going to take a few minutes to dry, so try not to drag your hand through them. We do have some drawing bridges around that you put over the surface, and then you can lean on them in order to keep your hand off of the drawing surface. So if that's something you want, I'll show you that. A couple other materials that work well would be traditional litho crayon. This is a Stones crayon. Generally the harder crayons are better than the soft ones, and you need to use these with some pressure. They're not so great for subtle tones. So if you want a gradation, something like a drawing kind of pencil look, you're not really going to have that option available to you with this particular type of plate. And also just a regular crayon, Crayola crayon will work fine. It'll give you a bold mark. It'll look bolder than that when it's done. These will change quite a bit after they're rolled up in ink. This is a Stones crayon in a holder. You simply release it with your thumb, and then you can move it up and down. So as it wears out, you can slide it down. They have a bit of wax in them, so they kind of flow nicely on the plate. This is a ruling pen. You have to lessen the gap for materials that are less viscous. And I'm going to dip my pen in the ink and draw a line. This used to be used a lot in architecture. It's not used so much anymore. Toner powder is used in laser copiers and in laser printers. I've put a little into a jar for my own use, and the first thing you need to do is make your mixture of toner. This is used for wash effects. So when you make this fresh, it's going to have a lot of foam, kind of a soapy foam on top, and sometimes that can make interesting marks. If you don't like it, actually this stuff works better the next day, so mix it up in advance and it'll keep for a while. It does settle in the bottom of the jar, so you need to stir it fairly frequently. It settles out pretty fast. So as you're working, just continue to stir it. And this is going to make what we call a concentrated solution. By that I mean it's going to be pretty black. So if you want a lighter wash, you're going to need to dilute this then with water. You could also dilute it with alcohol. And I'll show you what this looks like right after you make it. You can see there's a lot of foam. You can paint this directly on the plate, and it will do some kind of fun things as those bubbles subside. But that's not what I want. I want it to be a liquid that I can paint with. So I'm going to let that sit, and I'm going to use, for this demonstration, a mixture that I made previously. This is the toner mixed mixture I made previously, and instead of shaking this, I want to stir it gently because I don't want those soap bubbles in my mixture. So I'm going to pour a little of my concentrated solution in here and dilute it with a little bit of water for a lighter wash. And the marks over here that I spilled accidentally, I'm just going to let those dry. I'm not going to mess with them and see what they look like. As the toner dries, you'll see that it dries from the outside in. If you're familiar with lithography, traditional lithography, it's very similar to the touche. And as it dries, it forms rings or reticulations as it dries from the outside in. So I'm mixing up a liberal amount here. I'm going to just place it on the plate and draw it through. I imagine it's a little hard to see in the video how dark this is. I'll take some close-up shots later. So now I'm applying it even more liberally. And you can come back and add. If you want it darker, you think you want it darker, you can add to it. Very, very pale washes will print. So again, this is something that you want to try before making a piece so that you can figure out how dark you need to make your lines. And I don't know if you can see it in the video, but I have gone around the plate with a real light pencil line that won't print, just to remind me to stay inside my borders. When you first start out printing with these plates, it's much easier, much better if you stay away from the edges of the plate. Give yourself an inch, all dimensions, and you'll find out why later, but when you get more experience with these plates, you can print them to the edge. I guess that's about it for the toner wash and water. Now I'm going to put this aside. If I tipped this plate, the toner would run, and that can give you some interesting effects as well. But for this demonstration, I'm just going to push it aside here and take another plate. And this time I'm going to apply the touche I've made with alcohol. It's made the same way, just a little bit different formula. This is 1 teaspoon of toner, 2 ounces of isopropyl alcohol. Rubbing alcohol is the same thing. I'm going to apply it just one long streak so I can have it from going from dark to light. And I don't know if you can see it in the camera here, but it's starting to separate. So unlike the water touche that we just did, which is very even and kind of delicate and more atmospheric, this is kind of separating a little into patterns, which is kind of interesting. I could add more alcohol if I wanted to. Again, I'm going to take a little cup here and I'm going to pour a little bit of my solution. This also settles, so you need to stir it before you use it. And every time I dip my brush into it, I'd probably just give it a little stir because the toner settles to the bottom. I'm going to add a little alcohol to this. I could also add water if I wanted to, but I'm just going to use alcohol right now. And I think I'll get a little bit bigger brush to use. And I'm just going to put it on real quickly just to show you. Again, going from a heavier application to a lighter application. And this time I think I'll do it even heavier. The values will darken quite a bit. This will probably turn black at this end and this end, and down here you'll get some nice gradations of tone. So you really have to underdraw, and it will become a little more intuitive after you've done it a few times. So that's it. I'm going to let those dry. For this purpose, I'm going to just let them stay flat. Again, if you wanted to, you could pick them up and they would run and do weird things. You could also take a hairdryer or something and make them go in crazy directions. After they dry, you can draw on top of them with your standard materials for working on the plates. After they dry and you set them with heat, they have to be set with heat because once they dry, they turn back into powder. The water evaporates, the alcohol evaporates, and you're left with the original toner powder, which if you don't like it, you can take it to the sink and you can wash it off with water, which is the recommended method. I would not recommend trying to dust it off with a cloth because you don't want that powder airborne. You don't want to breathe it. So you let them dry completely and then you fuse them with heat, which I will show you in a separate video. And after that is finished, you're ready to print. Another method for creating an image on a pronto plate is to use a laser printed image. It can be from a copier or from a laser printer. Remember that it's going to reverse when you print it, so I'm going to place it face down. One of the nice things about working with transfers is that if I look at the image in this direction, this is going to be how it prints. I'm going to flip it to transfer it, and then when it prints, it's going to flip back the other direction. So in order to keep it from moving, I'm going to take some tape and tape one edge. I have a piece of newsprint under here. Not really necessary, but and I'm going to take some acetone, and a cotton pad works well. In this case I have a piece of wool felt that I'm using. Anything that's soft, absorbent, and that won't shred. And I'm saturating my pad here with acetone, and I'm going to coat the plate where the image will go. And I want to saturate it fairly well. You should work with ventilation. The acetone is not the worst of the solvents. It's better than lacquer thinner and other things, but it's not good to breathe, especially prolonged or repeated basis. So I'm just rubbing with some pressure. You can also do this on a press. I can show you that at some other time. In this case, the image is quite faint. It probably will darken up when it's printed, so we'll roll it up and see what it looks like. I have another image here. You don't want to trim the image down too far because you need a place to handle it, and it's best not to overlap images. If you need two images in the same place, if I wanted this here, I'd probably want to do that on a different plate. And the reason I tape it at one edge is so that I can flip it and just see how I'm doing. Every copier will produce a different image. Some are more successful than others. I'm not sure exactly why. I think the toner varies quite a bit in different printers. So I'm going to start at one edge and apply quite a bit of pressure, as much as I can. And once you do it, there's really no going back. So this image looks a little bit stronger than the first one. We'll process that and roll it up and see how it looks.